welcome back. Today I am featuring a galaxy background project that is sponsored by the Hoppin Facebook group. This Facebook group was started in 2020. And what we do is we try to motivate people to try new techniques or oldies but goodies. So today's technique, as you hop along, will feature either a bokeh technique or a galaxy technique. I chose to do the galaxy technique. Now, I will tell you, I've already cheated. I was not supposed to use any stamps, but I created my card before I realized it. So, anyhow, I am starting out by making a mask with a round die cut to create a moon. And I am using Distress Oxide inks because they are one of my favorite mediums. So for my background, I am using black soot, pumice stone, picked raspberry, chipped sapphire, squeezed lemonade, mermaid lagoon, and hickory smoke. So I am putting all of those colors down on watercolor paper. I think it's Canson XL that I'm using, and I cut my panel to 4x6 because I'm ultimately going to make a 5x7 card. So I start out by putting a yellow hue around where the moon would be, and I just make sure to keep that mask in place. And then I put down a rough blend of all of the colors, with the exception of the grays and the blacks. And you see that I take my distress sprayer and I get that really wet. And I'm just doing that to get the colors to move. And I'm going to tell you one thing about this technique. It is a hot mess until it isn't. And I can't tell you how many times I wanted to start and stop. So I'm just going to encourage you, if this is a new technique for you, to keep going. There's no way to mess it up. You just have to keep going. That's what's nice about Distress Oxides and this technique. Because they are pigment and they're water reactive, you can layer the colors over and over again. And if you don't like something, the pigment ink properties of this ink, it kind of sits on top of what you do. So unless you're mixing colors that would make mud or a brown color, you're going to be just fine. So I do go through and I put these colors down quite a few times before I'm happy. Now, I have to apologize. My hair is a hot mess. I'm sure you just saw it on camera. Anyway, my face was itching, so I put my hair up in a clip as if I was Pebbles from the Flintstones. So I am sorry that you get to see that side of me. And it's not pretty, but that's what's going on. So another key with these inks and the backgrounds being water reactive, once you add the ink, if you take a heat gun or a heat tool and you dry it in between layers, then you will get all of those little nuggets of like dimension. You'll see that they kind of replicate stars, and it gives the illusion of like different depths of field in the card, if that makes any sense. So once I have the colors down, I go in with that chipped sapphire, and that's a pretty dark color. There are darker colors which you're going to see me bring in, but that gives you, again, depth. But as I spray and add droplets of water, you'll start to see the colors underneath come forward. So that's why I'm doing that. Now I'm going in with the scary black soot, and I'm cringing, and I'm sure you are too, because again, I'm going in with a almost black color, and I'm going over even the yellows, the pink, the whole 9 yards, because obviously we want this to look like a galaxy. And when you think of a galaxy, it's mainly void of color, and then you just see just little bits and pieces of color, or like a Northern Lights type sky. So that is why I am going in with such dark colors. Now, I like a brighter sky, so I will go back in with the I believe it's wilted violet, and add that in with the black. And I'll just do that until I'm happy. And then I take a heavy body acrylic paint and I splatter that onto the background. Now, because it is acrylic paint, it kind of brings the colors forward. It doesn't stay true white. If that's something that bothers you, then use like P.H. Martin's bleed proof white. Now I'm taking pumice stone and I'm blending that over the moon just so I don't have a stark white moon. And I take a piece of paper that I just kind of tore jagged, and I'm coming in with hickory smoke. And again, it looks like a hot mess until it doesn't. Just hang with me, please. And I'm just making the illusion of clouds because, again, this is supposed to be a night sky. I'm not making outer space. And you're going to see that come in because I'm going to cheat and do the stamping. So I chose to do a Lavinia background. I started out by stamping the sparkle sentiment. And I heat embossed that with white embossing, fine detail embossing powder. Now, a key with embossing when you're making scenes, whatever you emboss first is going to show the most. Like when you keep adding, like if I had done black and then tried to do white, you would see the black, or vice versa. So you always keep that in mind when you're making an embossed background, because whatever you do first is what your eye picks up the most. And we're going to see an example of that in a minute. So then in the meantime, I bring in some vines and I just sort of stagger that across the top of my page. And I stamp those with VersaFine Clear Nocturne. That's basically my go-to black for my stamping. And then I emboss that with clear embossing powder. And it's very important that you test your paper and and make sure nothing's going to stick. So I dried my panel like crazy because I used a lot of water, and I think I treated my paper for about 5 minutes just to make sure it was nice and dry before I started my embossing. Otherwise, your embossing powder is going to stick to anything wet, which is the whole point of embossing, right? So I also chose to use the small pixies. And again, I am stamping that with the VersaFine Nocturne Clair. I am a mess. VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and embossed those in black. So you'll see where I did the vines and then I did the fairies. If I hadn't been careful with the fairies, where I placed it, the vine would have actually shown through, which is what you kind of want with the wings, because the wings are translucent, right? Then I came in, you'll see that I kind of made a faux looking forest at the bottom, and I used the foxglove stamp sets. I used the larger and the smaller image, and I staggered those across. I still wanted a little bit more color, so I went in with my wilted violet, and I just laid my stamping down with my hands. You see, I didn't use a block, I didn't use anything, and that's just because I wanted color in the background. But I did want the embossing. I wanted everything to be shiny and sparkly because that's what I'm going for. And in the background, you can see that I stamped some of the fairy orbs, and I stamped those before I did the foxglove. So if you look in that far right hand corner, you can actually see the orb more so than you do the tree, because I stamped and embossed that first, if that makes any sense. Now I wanted more shading and I wanted to draw the eye in, so I came in with the black soot and I kind of did a vignette. And then again, I wanted a little bit more color, so I came in with each one of my Distress Oxides and I just kind of dabbed that on just to give more of an illusion. I kept fiddling with this panel, right? But I think it turned out pretty cool. And at the very end, I just used a dry baby wipe and wiped the Distress Oxide off of all of my embossing to do an emboss resist technique. I did then mat my card with a black cardstock that was about, I think that was 4.5 by 6.5, and then I place that on a 5x7 card base. If you've enjoyed this card, I would really appreciate you liking and subscribing, as I am trying to grow my channel, as with everybody else that's on the Card Hoppin Facebook group. If you're interested, please look up our Facebook group and join us if you're new to YouTube, or if you're trying to build your audience base. We're always glad to have you. We do a new technique every month. And the first 15 people that sign up are the ones that get to a video. So it's not guaranteed to the entire group because we are quite large. But again, feel free to join us. Now you'll see that I am bringing in a Jelly Rolls clear glitter pen. And what I'm doing is I'm just highlighting the wings, and I also will dot that along the trees to bring more sparkle. And there's that hair again. I'm so sorry that you're seeing that, but it's kind of funny, right? But I just love the way it sparkles. You could use a colored gel pen, and you could bring in different colors if you wanted to, but I wanted my sky to be my main feature because that's the technique that we're doing today. So that's why I didn't go in with paints or other gel pens, right? I'd love to know what you think. If you think I pulled off the galaxy, what you would have done different, or if you would like to see more, because there are other mediums that you can do a galaxy background with, like color burst pigments, or with other inks or watercolors. You let me know what you think. Now I do bring in my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen, and I just splatter that on, and that just brings more sparkle into the project. Not necessary, but again, I love sparkle, so that's what you've got. Now coming up are some final pictures of my project. And again, if you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, hitting that bell, I would appreciate it. And please hop along with the rest of us with the Card Hoppin Facebook group. Until next time, keep crafting. Take care. Bye-bye.